Hey, we've got a nice day out here to do a little spinning. I hope you're getting to, get outside and enjoy some of this winter like we have been. I'm picking up right where we left off last week, and I'm doing the same bat that I didn't get to and spinning it on the same cob, although I have switched from the Dodec to my Exordium wheel, which is a beginner wheel. And it has a higher ratio, I think. I don't know what I was spinning on the Dodec. This is an 11-to-1, though. So I do believe I was spinning on an 8-to-1 last time because I was saying that I was under twisting it. This time I should have a normal amount of twist in it because I'm switching to the higher ratio. Let's try doing it right. Yeah. Okay. The thing with the higher ratio is usually I have to use both hands to draft because I can't get my unsupported long draw to work as well when there's high twist going in. I will say it's a bit more challenging as well to wind on in the higher ratio as your cob gets larger. There's a lot that goes into that, but essentially the larger your cob diameter is, then the more circumference you're going to have around. So every half kick you do back is going to take off more yarn that you're going to have to catch before going back the right way and winding everything on. However, when you go to wind stuff on, it winds it on much quicker. So that's nice because the larger you get on your cob, the quicker the wind in is later in your spinning, and that just saves you more time the further along you get. The same thing happens on a flyer wheel, but because of the increase in pull on the yarn, then you have to adjust your brake line if you're using tension, and as opposed to saving you time, that adds more time fidgeting, I guess. So not everybody is super excited about that aspect. I don't know if you can see the sheep in the background. There's one right down here at the corner of their fence. They're supposed to be up near the barn eating their hay I just put out, but they really like to see what's going on anytime you're kind of in their realm. At least my sheep do. They're kind of like cats. They want to be right in the middle of the business, whatever the business may be. See, now I've over twisted this little bit here, so I'll go into a holding pattern, which is just back and forth, and I'll actually draft this out further. And then when I get out to a normal amount, then I put all of that twist in that single strand. It divides it up once I, get it out this far, and then just let it travel. I do sometimes forget that the faster or the higher ratio will lead to faster spinning. So I don't know how long this video will be because this is all the wool I brought to spin, but I said that last week and it was a good 20-minute video, so it probably won't be a problem. Now I like the Exordium wheel, but it is more responsive to your treadling. So for a beginner, it gives a lot more feedback that maybe makes them a better spinner. But as you grow in your ability to spin, what you want is you actually want less responsiveness. You kind of want a wheel that just like keeps going like a flywheel and keeps an even spin on it, where your input is kind of marginal compared to the fact that the wheel just wants to keep rotating. So this is good for someone learning to spin. It's easy to kick around. It doesn't have a lot of heft on it, but at the same time, after you've been spinning for a while, you still have to have pretty good timing with this wheel to keep it rotating well, where if you move to a wheel like the Dodeck or something with more edge weight, you're not going to have to worry as much about your treadling, because the inertia of the wheel is going to keep it rotating at a pretty even weight, despite your input at the treadle. I said it was nice weather, but it's actually, there's a bit of sun out here. I might have to put on some lotion if I'm going to be out here too long. It's not too hot. I'm okay wearing this hat, but as far as skin exposed to daylight, I'm a bit of a vampire. Being a redhead, I can't really get all that much sun on my skin, even in winter. It is nice to be able to see the fiber, although I'm not sure that the camera is picking it up all that well, just because the scenery behind it is a bit of a mixed bag. But as far as for me spinning, it's pretty easy to see how nice and lofty this bat is, because the sunlight makes it so much more focused when spinning than like using your incandescent or your fluorescent lighting. Fluorescent lighting does pretty well, though. I can't complain about that. If I really have to get a lot of spinning done and don't want to do it under my house lights, I can always go to a library and find a quiet room, and I do pretty well under those really bright white lights, but sunlight's always preferable. Although I will say, being a farmer, I feel kind of guilty spinning during the day. I really think that that's kind of something I should be doing after the sun goes down, because while the sun's out, I need to be mending fence and feeding animals and shoveling stalls and doing things that I can't really do at night. Where spinning, as soon as the sun goes down, I kind of want to go inside and start working on that for quite a while. We're getting a good sized cob on this. I've said this before, but it's worth mentioning again in case some of you have missed those episodes. But when you're looking at the size of a cob on a spindle wheel in comparison to maybe, say, a bobbin on a flyer wheel, what you want to keep in mind is this is only a 1/4 inch center, where on a bobbin you've got a 3/4 inch center. So by the time we get out to the width of a bobbin, we've already got a good amount of yarn on here, not to mention it's 50% longer than most bobbins. So you not only have a good amount of yarn on here before you get to where a bobbin starts, but you got 50% more fiber on each row as well. So this would be quite a bobbin full if you're putting it on a bobbin instead of the spindle, which is pretty nice because they travel a little easier. They're not as bulky. The quill, because they're just made of paper. You don't have all that wood, but then you also don't have the girth and whatnot of the bobbin when you're throwing it in a bag or doing something of that nature. I will tell you, this 11-to-1 makes quick work of treadling. I really like doing an unsupported long draw for the most part because of how quick it goes, but this really isn't slowing me down, even though I'm having to use my second hand and do more of a supported long draw, which I like. So maybe the increase in ratio is worth it when it makes up for itself, you know, in drafting speed, I guess. Now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with this yarn once I'm done with it. You can't see my foot, but I'm, I'm shifted into high speed, which means I've slid my foot back down the treadle where there's not much of my toe on the treadle. The more of your foot that you put on the treadle, the lower geared you are for treadling. So if you slide your foot all the way up on the treadle, close to where the footman is, you're treadling in low gear, which means you have a lot of input, but the treadle is really easy to push. As you start to slide your foot back off of the treadle, like let's say you slide it halfway down, now all of a sudden, oh, we got some rat tails there because of our high ratio. Okay. When you start to slide it about halfway back, what you get is it's not as easy to push the treadle, although, you know, it's a phenomenal feeling, but even though it's not as easy to push it, you get a lot less movement in your foot. So, you know, maybe you can treadle twice as much before you get tired, even though it takes a little more muscle on each treadle. Now, when we talk about how hard it is to treadle, or how much your foot is moving, that's not because you're going to care about that while you're doing it. What that is the less you can move your feet, the more hours you can treadle for. And the more you're able to push the treadle. So like let's say you're in high gear, you move your foot less, you can treadle for a lot longer. But you really have to be good with the timing if you're going to treadle in high gear. Because like I said, you don't have as much power at the treadle with your foot. You're giving up power for smaller movements. And so you can treadle for longer, but you have to have better timing. If you slide up into low gear, what happens is your foot's moving a lot more, but it's a lot easier to control the speed and rate of your treadling. If you're going to do that stuff like holding patterns and things like that, where you want to be really maneuverable with your drive wheel and with your treadle, you're going to want to do that in low gear. It's not that you can't do it in high gear. You can after quite a bit of practice. But for those of you who don't have a lot of time to get in spinning all the time, the tip is slide your toe further up the treadle to have more control over what's happening at the drive wheel, and slide it back to kind of coast into high gear and be able to treadle for much longer periods of time. Now, the shorter your treadle is, the more minute those scales are. But if you put like a long treadle on, and when I say long treadle, I don't mean have the treadle coming back past the point of your fulcrum. So like don't have it coming back past the point of your pulley. What you want is the pulley starts further back from where the footman attaches. And the longer that is, then the greater difference there is between your high gear and your low gear. Like, it's a lot easier to change those gears in between. You don't have to be in high or low. You can kind of be in between and make incremental jumps in there. It's funny watching this video. I noticed that it looks like the pulley, probably not with this one being at the ratio it is, but the 8-to-1 really lines up a lot of times with the frame rate that the video is being shot on. So it actually looks like the pulley stops moving for a good portion of the time, but that's an optical illusion. And it's interesting that the frame rate, which is shot at 30 frames per second, is lining up so closely with the, I have a rat tail there. I guess it's further back. I'll have to watch for that when plying because it's not a problem to take it out then. Anyways, the frame rate that's at 30 frames per second is lining up so quickly with my 8-to-1 ratio. So that means somewhere between 30 frames per second and 8 spins per treadle, my rate is lining up pretty well with the video rate, and that's why you can't see the pulley moving. So I wonder if that has something to do with heart rate and why you fall into those patterns. That would be interesting to know, that if my resting treadle that I normally treadle at matches up easily with 30 times per second in some way. If anybody's wondering about twists per inch, what I usually shoot for on my singles is about 4 twists per inch. So if you think about the fact that I'm spinning about a yard of yarn at a time, you know, from the tip to where I am pinching off the twist, that's 36 inches. If you want to multiply 36 times 4 twists per inch, that'll give you how many twists there are in my yard of fiber, right? And then you divide that by 11 on this, because this is an 11-to-1, and that'll tell you how many times I want to pedal that treadle for that yard of fiber that I've drafted. And I don't know what that comes out to, something like 15 or 18, but that's about what I do, 18 treadles for a yard of drafting, and that comes out to about 4 twists per inch, and it's a pretty good one. I would say that my yarn is generally has less twist in it than most because I like lofty yarns. I really spin more of a worsted weight yarn, or a worsted style yarn, than a woolen, but I spin a lofty worsted by adding less twists. Alright, so I'm going to go into the holding pattern right here because there was a chunk I didn't like, and now I continue and I add the twist in. And to be honest, I say there's about a yarn from the tip until where I pinch off the twist, but it's actually, you never count like this first 6 inches because you want to leave 6 inches after you wind on. So I'm really drafting about 1 yard and 6 inches, or I'm coming back 1 yard and 6 inches from the tip, because then I'm leaving 6 inches when I wind on. So I'm always winding on about a yard of newly drafted fiber. It's warm enough out here, I'm thinking I might have to go swimming later. Does anybody know of any swimming holes that aren't froze over? Oh, our sheep gave it up. She's up there getting ready to go in and eat her hay. She got tired of all the spinning. I'm gonna move this just a bit and fire it up. I am drafting way too thin in parts of that. That's one thing I've noticed about my spinning, is that the better the lighting is, the thinner my drafting gets, because the more fiber I can see. It's not intentional, but it does seem to happen to me quite a bit. So that's an interesting thing to know about your spinning, is that something seemingly unrelated does have an effect on what you do. It'd be the equivalent of noticing that your knitting gauge was different depending on what temperature the room was. I'm going to switch foots here. I'm going to switch feet here and go with my left foot for a while. I don't have the rhythm as well with the left foot, and again, that comes out a bit with the exordium, because it's not like the dodeck where it has the inertia to keep itself spinning evenly. This is also, by the way, why I like a single treadle wheel, is because you do not have two feet working the same drive wheel. You can take a break with one leg while working it with the other, and that is nice. Alright, we're on the last one now, and I'm going to shift back to my right foot. I'm going to have to spin up another cob to ply with this, because this is only the first quill that I've done with this Maris batting. Now, this isn't the first quill that I've spun using her wool, but it's the first quill I've spun using her wool spun from a bat, and I kind of like to keep my preparations together. So like the ply that I do to mix with this, I will also spin from a bat that I prepared from her wool. And having those like preps will give me a consistency between the singles, so that when I ply them together I get a uniform yarn. As to where if I just hand carded a mess of this wool, and spun it in a single, I'd get a nice diversity between those two plies in the same yarn, but it wouldn't be a great example for me since this is the first bat that I'm doing. I'm going to want a yarn that's indicative of what happens when I prepare the bat for both singles, spin it together, and then have, my poly yarn from that. It'll give me a great example of what that finished yarn looks like. Then I can go back and do 2 cobs, 2 quills with hand-carded singles and see how that yarn compares to this yarn. I usually don't have a problem getting tired of treadling, although when I do, I can kind of feel it in my shins. I had shin splints really bad back in college. I played rugby for the Missouri Tigers, and our workout, I didn't know what shin splints were, or tenosynovitis, so I couldn't really tell people what were going on. I was just like, man, those wind sprints uphill really kill my legs. And they'd be like, oh yeah? Do you have shin splints? And I'm like, no, I don't, I don't know what that is. I don't guess so. And they're like, what does it feel like? I'm like, this feels like my legs get really tired really quickly. But I found out later on when I did get tenosynovitis in my forearm, I was like, oh, you know what? This feels just like what I had in my leg. And the doctor's like, oh, you had shin splints. And at that point I was like, I guess I did have shin splints, but I played the whole year with shin splints because I got them pretty early on, and I don't really know when they went away because I had them for years, it seems like, walking up steps and things of that nature, but they do not bother me too much now that I spin, but that is something that I want to be aware of. I don't want to have any kind of repetitive stress injuries that affect my spinning because I want to be doing this for years to come. Well, it looks like we got a good cop there, and we should be able to get a nice sized ball of yarn. As a matter of fact, when I get a cop about this size, and I'm going to apply it even with one other cop about this size, I've almost ran into a skein of yarn that is too large to cake with my ball winder. So that's interesting to know, not how much you want to have, but how much you can logistically deal with after the fact when you're dealing with, I'll have to apply this with another one about the same size, and then I'll have to use that yarn on a nitty-knotty to get my length, so I don't want to be dealing with something that I can't do on a nitty-knotty without losing concentration or, counting, and then I also have to take that and then be able to cake it with a ball winder without running into any problems with it, falling off of that and getting in the wrapping component and stuff. So you kind of want to know what the top end of your cop needs to be. And like I was saying earlier, this looks deceptively small, and it's not, especially once you've combined it with another one of the same size. As a matter of fact, I would be over capacity if I was trying to make a 3-ply out of a few cobs of this girth, because I would run into, even though the length wouldn't be that bad, the girth would be so big that as I'm going on my ball winder, the part of the beginning or the bottom that it's loading it against, once you spill over that, it gets caught up underneath and you can't go any further. And it's pretty aggravating to have your yarn caked as big as you can get it on there and then have to break off the rest and do it separate. So it's nice to know where you want to be at the end of your spinning so that you're not running into problems like that later on. But yeah, this is our Maris, and Started it on the Dodec, I finished it on the Exordium, and I think that does it for this week. I hope you guys are getting outside and spending quite a bit of time working with the fiber.